The things that guys do, like teaching your son or daughter how to play catch, or being able to, talk with your buddies when there's only so many topics that guys talk about in the first place, but one of them being your kids, all of a sudden there's a little bit of alienation. It'd be the same thing as if a guy was struggling with work and, was out of a job for a while.
Welcome to Get Pregnant Naturally, where functional medicine and natural fertility solutions will help you get pregnant and have your baby. Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Clark, and my mission is to inspire, motivate, and empower you. Most of all, I want you to wake up. So with functional medicine, we can discover what causes infertility and eventually reverse the condition. Today, I'm excited to welcome Jon Waldman to the podcast, and we're digging into the male perspective when dealing with infertility. So Jon Waldman is a fertility spokesman and advocate. Jon's been an active member of Winnipeg's Infertility Support Network and has shared his story with local media. In June 2017, Jon gave a TEDx Talk on getting men to talk about infertility, which has led him to speaking with many individuals and couples, as well as additional speaking engagements. He's a member of the Fertility Matters Canada Board of Director. Jon and his wife are infertility patients and had their daughter, Kaia, through IVF in 2015 after struggling to conceive for 6 years. Professionally, Jon works in marketing and communications and is currently with 6P Marketing. A 4-time author, Jon was shortlisted in 2016 for the Carol Shields Winnipeg Book Award for 100 Things Winnipeg Jets fans should know and do before they die. Jon was also a recipient of the Winnipeg Police Services Citizen Appreciation Award in 2017 for his volunteer work in community safety. In his downtime, Jon enjoys spending time with his family, walking his dog, cycling, and paddleboarding. So definitely check out Fertility Matters CA, which is the National Fertility Association in Canada. And before we jump on today's show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button on iTunes, wherever you're listening to this, to make sure you never miss an episode. Hey, Jon, excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Yeah. Can you share your journey with us and what led you here actually to talk about this tonight?
Yeah, absolutely. So my wife and I struggled with infertility for 5 to 6 years. Basically, after we got married, we were in the middle of developing our careers and finishing school, and waited to have kids. Tried for a while unsuccessfully. Eventually were successful, but miscarried about 8 weeks into the pregnancy. After going through another period of trying, we were still having issues, and at that point we said that we needed to get a little bit of help. So living in Winnipeg, we went to the one clinic that's here, Heartland, where we started to go through a couple procedures. We did some trying with drugs. We did a sperm analysis. We checked everything out with my wife, and ultimately found that we weren't having much success. We went through IUI, tried Clomid and a couple other drugs, and it just wasn't working. So we knew that we eventually were going to have to do IVF. So we ended up going to Victoria, BC to do that. And along the way, we just found that we needed help. We needed some support. We weren't getting a lot of friends that were completely understanding what we were going through. We weren't having a lot of help from family necessarily. So we joined up with the Infertility Awareness Association of Canada, as it was known then, and both just attended a lot of meetings, conversed over Facebook with other couples that were struggling as well. And really, what I found was that it was helpful for me because I'm used to talking, I guess, a little bit more than most guys do. In some ways, I was very quiet in other ways, but in the group settings, I found that there was a certain comfort there. And as I continued on, I started to be approached to do media engagements on behalf of our group, and was a little bit frightened at first to do so. I'd been going through other issues with mental health, etc., and didn't really want to be too public at first. But once I started talking, I did my first interview anonymously. I started to really find my voice, and as we went on our journey, I continued to talk more. And in 2014, between the Canadian and American Thanksgivings, essentially, we ended up traveling to Victoria and thankfully had success out west. Came home with my wife pregnant with our baby daughter,
Oh,
who is now about to turn 3.
nice.
So yeah, and I've just continued on from there. And I've really found that every time that I talk, other people start to share their stories as well. So I was given a couple other opportunities in Winnipeg media to tell my story, and on a couple other platforms, which ended up leading to me giving a TED Talk in Winnipeg last year. And it only blossomed from there. I joined the National Board of Fertility Matters Canada, as it's now known, and I've been involved in other projects as well. And it's been phenomenal just to see the reactions that people get when anybody opens up, let alone that a guy is opening up and sharing experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Because typically it's women that are a little more vocal about this, and men typically are pretty quiet about it. So to be able to, and you said in the beginning that it took you a little while. You were anonymous at first, and being able to find your voice, and then obviously a TED Talk. So now being part of the Fertility Matters board and just sort of sharing your story, kind of where you go. That's kind of what's been happening for you then.
Absolutely. And it's been just rewarding for me to be able to get people talking and to hear the stories and to hear the struggles and to be able to give advice or be the listening ear for so many people, both locally and really across North America. It's been incredible. One of the best experiences for me was being interviewed by the Huffington Post and my story being shared. And I got responses from people as far away as California messaging me after and saying that they were so inspired to hear me telling my story. And it is really just blown up from there. And I've been so honored to be able to be a voice for so many that are voiceless, as it were.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so why don't we dig into, so why do you think that men and women handle infertility differently? What's your take?
I think there's a couple factors. First of all, there's a programming, just as by the nature of our genders, that women have the urge to have to be pregnant, whereas for men, it's we're a little bit more detached in a way because we do what we do for multiple reasons. Let's put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But for us, like we don't have the experience of carrying. We have the male experience in pregnancy and in birth and in fatherhood is so different than it is for women who carry for the 9 to 10 months, for all the things that come with motherhood. It's a very different dynamic in that sense. So when you take away from women and you take away from men, the automatic is that the result is very much different as well. And men, because we are programmed to take care of our wives, we tend to either ignore how we're feeling, we'll shut out any feelings that we're having, or we will just completely shut down in other cases. And the offshoot of that, of course, is that you end up with mental health issues that already might be festering within, and all of a sudden you got compounded problems that lead to all sorts of issues for your functionality, both in your relationship and in your everyday life.
Yeah, because not giving voice to these feelings, the more we push them down, it just prolongs the suffering. And so being able to give a voice to them, and yeah, and also going through infertility in itself, it affects all aspects of your life. And then
Mm-hmm.
if you, and a lot of people have, mental health issues. And if there's that compounded on top of it, and then it's kind of like, well, where do I even go with this? Because this kind of leads into my next question, because
Mm-hmm.
like the shame around it, that men somehow feel like their manhood is threatened. What's your take on that?
I think it's absolutely something that you feel threatened. There's the syndrome, and one of our speakers during Canadian Fertility Awareness Week talked about how women have to have better sense of what they can and cannot do as they're struggling with infertility, in celebrating other things like going to baby showers for friends or for family events. Now those can be difficult. Guys do it differently. For us, there's the feeling of the things that guys do, like teaching your son or daughter how to play catch, or being able to, talk with your buddies when there's only so many topics that guys talk about in the first place, but one of them being your kids, that all of a sudden there's a little bit of alienation. It'd be the same thing as if a guy was struggling with work and, was out of a job for a while. How does he talk about that when all of his friends are progressing in certain ways, etc.? Or if a guy is single longer than all of his buddies are, there's more of a pack mentality in that way for guys, and that we don't know how to react when we aren't part of a pack, or that if there's a deficiency, how do we maintain that feeling amongst our guy friends of being part of it and being all together and doing the same thing at the same time.
Yeah, and is that something that you shared with any of your close male friends, or is that really where the support groups that you went to? And then you said you reached out to other couples. So I don't know how that worked for you.
Yeah, it was hard for me to talk to a lot of my buddies, because you in some ways you shut it down because you want to be able to still do the things that you're used to doing, but it's hard for guys to emote at the best of times, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for guys to open up. So amongst male friends in those circles, unless somebody is going through what you're going through, much the same way that it is for women, you really can't explain what it is. It's not like, and I was talking about this with a friend of mine who has gone through these issues, is that this isn't something where you can put on a VR helmet to see what it's like to be, sight deficient, or you can't go through a simulator where you're feeling what it's like to have limited mobility. This is something that is completely different, and there's no way for you to be able to tell what it is like until you're actually in that experience yourself. So to try to explain to another guy, especially, it's near impossible to do so. So the support networks that come up become that much more vital, and even then you're still going back against that natural feeling for guys of how do we talk. So the support network aren't always the strongest. It's oftentimes that, when we would go to our sessions, that there were far more women that would come either alone, or that the men in their lives just weren't showing up because of for whichever reason. But what ended up happening for us is that we ended up developing a social circle with a number of the other couples, and we would go out for dinner on Saturday nights, or we would have just days where we'd chat over Facebook, etc., and that became the new circle for us, the new norm.
So created this new circle. And did you find it was easier to talk with some of the women, or were you able then in that group to kind of get a bit of a bond with the guys? Like, would you actually have a heart to heart with them, or it was more like, hey, and just do that buddy thing?
Yeah, it was definitely more that buddy thing.
Yeah.
For the guys. And I guess it's more my nature. And I talked about this a little bit in my TED Talk about how I am, by every definition, a girl's guy. I've
Right.
always had more comfort talking with women than with guys. So for me, it was very natural to go into that setting and to be able to open up in the support group areas, and beyond that, to chat over Facebook, or to, a lot of the interviews that I did when I was doing media was with a female host or female interviewer. So that was natural as well.
Yeah, and also another question here we have is, so many women complain that their partner doesn't even seem upset. Women are typically, researching, joining forums,
Yep.
support groups, potentially obsessing about this. And then it's kind of like, oh, the partner is may not even seem to care almost. So what's your take on that?
I think it's just because it's it's a defense mechanism for guys. In general, guys will do one of two things. It is either fight or flight. So when you look at that dynamic, a guy who will fight will get very, they will get very primal, I guess, as it were, and they will get their backs up and they will push and become very belligerent, etc. Other guys will go inwards and they will pull back and not talk about their hurt. So they won't show their hurts. There's the bravado, the machismo to it, as it were, that you don't want to show that you are hurting, and that's also you want to be there for your partner as much as possible. And it's hard for you to be there for somebody when you yourself are hurting. So you're just going to do what you can. And unfortunately, what a lot of guys do is they overdo it, where all the attention becomes on the female,
Yeah.
and you sort of are listening to the issues, but you're not necessarily digesting, or you're trying to, in your own mind, figure things out, but not talking about it, not expressing it. So it becomes a different kind of struggle in that regard.
Yeah, not honoring the pain that you're going on, that the
Absolutely.
male is going through. Yeah. And so you're just saying,
Absolutely.
centering everything on the woman, and then the woman may even feel that you aren't even going through anything, when that's definitely not the case.
It's definitely not. And I think that any guy will tell you that there are moments that they will never forget about what through their infertility. So for me, for example, I remember I was going into a mini strip mall, and I saw a former classmate of mine from high school, and she asked me if I had any kids yet, and I said that I didn't, and she said, "Oh, you better catch up." She, of course, who had one and was expecting to have a second fairly soon. So it was one in that moment that it hit hard, a lot harder in reflection now that I have such a vivid memory of it.
Mhm.
But every guy will have that, and it can be something that's as innocent as that kind of comment, or it can be something deeper. It can be the moment of discovering the miscarriage. It can be any number of things, and these are all the kind of things that when my memory is jogged, that guys will remember and they hold on to and they will never forget. But there are certain things that shine brighter, and for every guy there is that moment where you really do feel that inferiority, where you feel like there's something that's wrong with me, whether it's male or female factor, but especially if it's male factor, you start to question a lot of things about yourself, and that just digs yourself deeper, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's those triggers that a lot of women talk about, either seeing pregnant women everywhere they go. There's a pregnant woman, feeling their bodies failed them, feeling broken. And so, yeah, for men, it's just the same. There's triggers for men as well, and maybe some of the same triggers.
Absolutely. I think that when you look at things like being invited to a kid's first birthday, or to other events where you're put into a social situation where everybody's running around with kids and you're the childless couple that's sort of standing off to the side, it can be extremely uncomfortable for you. So for a lot of people, they will just say, you know what, I can't do this.
Mhm.
And either one will go or neither will go, and that comes down to how both of you are feeling. The guy will more often probably say that, we'll be fine, we'll just go for 10 minutes, or I'll just go, it's okay, you can stay home. But very rarely will they say, I'm not feeling like I can go to this. It's a lot less common for guys to do that, for sure.
Being able to set those boundaries where women are like, okay, wait a minute, I'm not going to go to that baby shower. I'm not going to see that couple, that we used to hang out with, and now she's pregnant. I'm going to stay away from it. Whereas a guy maybe like, okay, could go, and not really voice that it's painful.
Yeah, because guys, as by their very nature, are less expressive in the first place. So for us to go somewhere it's not necessarily not as painful, but it's something that we can skip over a little bit easier, I think. And it's not that women dwell more than men, or that they have different emotions than men. It's just that men are programmed in a way to be more quiet and to just go with things a little bit more than women do.
Yeah, I guess some of these, can be stereotypes. Is that, you think that might be a stereotype, or is that kind of what you've seen, that guys
It's
will?
I think there's definitely a stereotype to it, but in this case, there's a nugget of truth from it. When you look at things like how even locker rooms are built, or how guys will just sort of, the old expression from a football coach or something like that is just to rub some dirt on it and get back in the game. Guys won't worry about, is this something that's going to to hurt me more. It's part of the reason why, when you look at male athletes, for example, who will rush back into a situation where they're coming off a concussion, and they'll be more likely to jump back into a scenario rather than taking care of themselves, is, to me, is a big part of it. Is that there's just this mentality, and it's something that we're taught from childhood, that you put your head down, you go through it, and you just do it.
Just
You
get
don't
on
think
with it.
about it,
Yeah.
you don't feel about it, you just do it.
Yeah. And what do you think about that many men may feel they've failed as a partner because they're not able to lift their partner's spirits? So they feel that maybe they're supposed to be the one making their partner feel better. Like, is there some advice you have there of what men should do?
It's hard because the common thing that you hear from so many women is that he's my rock, he's my stone through everything, whatever the hardship may be. And for guys, yeah, we have to do that. And yes, it should actually be a two-way street, that a guy should be able to depend on his wife as much as she depends on him. But he has to be able to open up to that. He has to be to open up, to talk. For me, in both pre birth and post, when I've had to deal with other issues, is that it's just talking. And I wish that there was a better answer that I could give, but you just have to do it. There's no other way to put it. You can do it. Thank God there's so many ways today to do so, whether it's to see a therapist one-on-one, whether it's to go through resource centers that are specific to men, or to go online either in a forum like Facebook or a more anonymous forum like a message board. But there's just so many outlets out there today that weren't even around even 10, 15 years ago, where there are so many avenues. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of searching around. And sometimes it's just sitting on your phone for a half hour and looking through Google, or calling one of the helplines or crisis lines, depending on the severity of your situation, and just finding the resources that are going to help you. But ultimately, it comes down to you doing it. No one's going to do it for you. No one should be doing it for you. Every guy is built differently. Every female is built differently. Everybody's going to have their different solutions. For some guys, it's just going out and with a golf club and whacking balls for a half hour or an hour and getting it all out of their system. For other guys, it's going somewhere and having a drink or two, obviously not to excess, but it's finding that avenue and finding that release. And once you have that release and you're able to, in those moments, collect your thoughts, gather your thoughts, and then to be able to express them in a healthy manner, is the best thing and the only way that you're going to be able to find your path and to get yourself on a right track.
Yeah, and reaching out for support is brave. It's courageous. It's sometimes we see it as a weakness that we need to ask for help, whereas that's the brave thing to do. It's like, wait a minute, I'm struggling here. I need help.
And it's funny that's because it seems like something, and I guess because I've been through it, it doesn't feel like that. But I had a lot of people saying that it's incredible what you're doing and talking to people, and now going out in this public forum, but it never really feels that way to me, because it's something that, and partly because my career is in marketing and in promotion, that I'm used to that sort of public visage, as it were. And I think there's a point that comes to that point for everybody, is that you never really, we take a lot of things for granted in general, but once you do something, you don't even think about that, okay, you've done this. And whether it's that you've graduated law school and are now defending all sorts of cases, etc., or that you're a doctor and you've changed somebody's life forever through finding a disease and finding a cure for it, or whatever it is in your life, but that is something that just becomes second nature to you in a way. And we do have to take those moments, absolutely, to celebrate those things that we do that are so hard to do, and that are so difficult to do, especially when you're at that precipice of stepping across that line or choosing that path, at that fork in the road. But it's seeing that moment and seeing what you did and being able to celebrate it that really gives you that sense of accomplishment and gives you that realization that if you can do this, that you can do anything. It was only after I was able to open up and be able to talk that I felt like, okay, I can do this trip to Victoria. I can drive the however many hours I did back and forth and through the treacherous weather that we had on the way back, that I felt like I was ready to do that.
Yeah, and then for you also the journey to share your story with others, to help others. And first you started out kind of doing it anonymously, and then in groups, and then being more vocal about it and just kind of exercising your voice. And now, yeah, going on different platforms and things like that, to just feeling a need, I'm sure, to just share this message. Or what? Yeah, what's underneath there?
It really is. It's that feeling of wanting to do what I can for others. I've always had the opinion, whether it's been in my working life, whether it's been my volunteer life, or what have you, that I always want to leave an area better than when I got there. And I know it sounds cliche, but it's something that I've always lived by, is that if I can make the difference, then I'm honored to do so. And for me to be able to see some of the results, to have people coming to me and having the conversations as they're going through injections or going through tests and procedures, and to hear about a pregnancy or something like that, there's no better feeling than to know that in some small way that I was able to help somebody through a very difficult time. And for my own family to now be able to walk proudly with my daughter and my wife, not just going to events that's just myself and my wife, but to be going to birthday parties and to be going to all the things that come with a toddler that exhaust you. It really does fill you with a sense of pride that we were able to get this, we were able to do it together, and we lasted through the trials and tribulations that come with battling infertility.
Yeah, sometimes couples, this tears them apart. Others couples, it brings them together. What was your experience with your relationship?
We had patches of very much difficulty, and I think that if anybody thinks that they didn't go through a rough patch, it's because you weren't paying enough attention.
Mhm.
But really, it's the biggest test that any couple will ever go through, is having that loss, or having that loss of what you should be doing with your life, whether it's that you've been unemployed for a long stretch of time, or that you faced financial troubles, or that you faced distances, etc., where you were apart for a long time, but that you were able to get through that together, is the greatest feeling in the world. There is no better feeling for me than when our daughter was born. I had my private moment with my daughter, of course, but for us to be sitting together and holding our daughter, who ended up in the NICU for a short period, but for us to be holding her together and to be going through all the experiences of bathing her and sitting up with her at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's in those moments that you look back and you see the struggles that got you there, and they're so much sweeter once you get past that road. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, that it's through a procedure like IVF. Whether you've done a surrogacy, whether you've adopted, or whatever the decision is that you've made for your life, that you have made that journey together and that you have stuck it out, is admirable. There are so many statistics about, let alone the regular circumstances of staying together versus divorce, that so many couples go through, but that you are doing it in these extremely trying times where there is so much that gets taken away, where intimacy gets thrown out the window, where so many aspects of what is regular life and regular activity is changed, because you're going to so many more doctor appointments, because you're going to support groups, because you're doing all these things that quote unquote regular couples don't do. It will bring you together in some ways. In other ways, it also brings you a lot of isolation, because guys don't express, because women get frustrated when their guys don't talk, and they're not sure how to bring things out of them or to give them that comfort, understandably so, that it does bring about those feelings of separation and anxiety and depression, and what am I doing in this relationship? But ultimately, it sounds so cliche, but it is true that communication is the foundation, and that's what's going to get you through any tribulation that you have.
Yeah, that's when I first started working with women that were struggling with infertility. I was just coaching women, and then
Hmm.
I realized I was missing the other part of this equation, which was the partner. So I've actually started doing couples coaching, and having, and
Hmm.
typically the protocol is for the woman because we deal with female fertility issues, but really having the partner there, and they get coached on their own health goals and making changes, diet, lifestyle to
Yeah.
improve things. But it's really having everyone on the same page, and even hearing the other person asking coaching questions, even hearing the other person go, oh wait, this is what I think about that. And sometimes they haven't even talked about any of these issues. So being here, the other person express their feelings, kind of like, oh, and then it just brings them closer together, because a lot of times, as you said, you're going through this, and they liken it to a cancer diagnosis. It's extremely
Right.
stressful, impacts every aspect of your life, and that's why reaching out for support again is very brave.
Absolutely. And, there were times where there were things that I wasn't comfortable doing. So, for example, my wife was very much into trying acupuncture. I am deathly afraid of needles at the best of times. So there was no way that I was going to do it. However, what I told her was that I'll go with you and I'll listen to some of the advice that your doctor might dispense. And that from that, there were certain things that she said that I should be doing. So changing my diet, exercising a bit more, not doing certain exercises like riding a bike too long or anything like that.
Right.
But also, my one of the things that she introduced was not just eliminating certain foods, especially at certain times, but also to look at other foods. Goji berries, for example, was one that I was encouraged to take, as well as maca root. Now, I know that a lot of people will know what maca root is all about. So for those people, you might have gone through this experience also. But for me, when I took it, I stupidly decided that I was going to have the powder rather than the pill form.
Mm-hmm.
And what I didn't know was that maca root, as soon as it touches any type of liquid, including saliva, is that it congeals so greatly. And I practically gagged every time that I had to take it.
Yeah,
But
it's so malty too, right?
it is horrible. It's it's like cocoa mixed with, I can't even describe it,
It's
but
like
it just
coffee malty kind of taste. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So it was just something where it's like, how the heck am I going to do this? But you know what? I pushed through it and did it for as long as I could tolerate it. But there's other things that guys will be told, and even if if males are in an ideal situation where they're producing, where their sperm is healthy, etc., there's always little things that you can be doing a little bit more, if nothing else, is to support your wife. If she's being told that she has to change her diet, then the guy has to change his diet too. He can't just be having salads and having extra berries, etc., at home, and then ducking out to Burger King every other weekend.
Exactly.
If you're going to go on this journey, and yes, there were certain things that I didn't do that I probably should have in reflection, but you really do have to be there for the person and for your spouse, and you have to be able to make those sacrifices, because ultimately, anything that you want to do in life, you have to be willing to put an effort into it that's true and 100% into it if you want to have any sort of success.
Absolutely. Yeah. We started our couples off with a food sensitivity test and then an elimination diet. And I'm like, okay, the female is going to do this. And typically you guys are going to be cooking together. And it would
Yep.
be, I can't drag anyone across the finish line, because if you're doing diet and lifestyle changes, the person has to want to do it. But
Yeah.
typically most of the partners are like, okay, I'm going to, join in and do this with her. We're going to do it together.
Absolutely.
So,
And there are times where you can have your cheats or anything like that. Obviously, not at certain times of the month, but it is about having those experiences and knowing that you can have your weeks of salads, or your weeks of healthier foods like fish and lean chicken, etc., and then have your one night where you're gonna blast out with nachos and all that good stuff. It's like anything else. Like if your goal is to have weight loss, or if you're looking at your wife having issues with gluten, or whatever the symptom is, you have to be willing to change your lifestyle. In the same way, the female partner has to be willing to do that for the male partner. So if the guy is saying, I'm comfortable talking not in sessions or in away from our families, she has to be willing to do it as well, because it is a partnership. It is a two-way street. And especially when you're in a situation where guys are so adverse a lot of times to opening up, there has to be that recognition that you have to be there for your guy just as much as he is being there for you. And you have to be cognitive of when he is ready to open up and when he is ready to talk or he is ready to make certain changes. And you have to be able to do that together.
Yeah, exactly. Pushing, it's more like you can't, as I say, drag someone across the finish line. So pushing and cut doesn't work. It's basically the person will open up when they're ready, and it's basically being able to give them the forum to do that and a safe space, right? Because sometimes you could open up and it could be the wrong person and they could say the absolute worst thing, which then it's like, oh, see, shouldn't have said anything. So and so just said, well, why don't you just relax, or why don't you just go and have more sex, or these comments, well-meaning comments that, and maybe, I don't know, do guys kind of do those jokes like, oh, you're shooting blanks, like those kind of this like hurtful kind of things, or maybe that male bravado thing? I don't know, what's your experience with any of that?
Thankfully, I didn't experience a lot of that from my guy friends because guys don't talk about it in the first place,
Okay,
I
so they
guess.
weren't even going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, that guys are idiots. Let's face that. So that in every male's life, he is going to be legitimately and rightfully called an idiot at some point or another. So the reality is that I didn't experience it, but I know guys that have. It's like we make and it's sometimes it's the innocent comments that hurt the most. But we would get some of the ridiculous advice that certain positions were going to be more friendly for the sperm staying inside or things like that, or that we could potentially travel higher, or if you just have a little bit of wine, which has more of an adverse effect than anything. When I was doing some research, one of the ones that I didn't know about was that there's an urban legend that cough syrup can help you improve your chances, but it's a complete falsity also.
It's supposed to help with the cervical mucus or something, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's so funny. Like, and this isn't a case like when somebody has a broken arm and someone will say, oh, all you have to do is you just have to stabilize it, and everybody sort of becomes an amateur doctor. Well, everybody becomes an amateur fertility specialist when all of a sudden one of their friends is struggling, and they'll come up with all these amazing things that you can be doing. But the number one is simply if you would just relax, it would happen. Or the one that everybody likes to say, especially to the people who are single, is that you're always going to find your mates when you stop looking. It doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen like that in dating. It doesn't happen like that when you're in a job search, and it doesn't happen when you're trying/not trying to have a baby. It's not. This isn't something like where like all of a sudden you can throw on your leather jacket and go back to high school, get in the back of your parents' car, and all of a sudden you're going to make a baby. No, that does not happen. There isn't a way to mentally turn it on and off that all of a sudden you're going to be able to produce. There is no way that happens, and you can tell all the different urban legends to a guy. You can tell all the different urban legends to a girl. It's not going to make a hill of beans of difference if the reality is that there are other factors that are working against you.
Exactly, that people aren't aware of. And I guess kind of then that tough guy, and we touched on this a little bit, but that the men take on that role of the tough guy, that fine. And although you say with their buddies, you're not even going to talk about it to begin with, but I don't know if talking about it with like a maybe family or anything like that, what about talking with their parents or their siblings or things like that?
It becomes harder in a way because if you're the older brother, the idea is that you're supposed to be the role model for the younger. If you're the younger, you're trying to aspire to be that older sibling. So it's hard to relate even in that generation. Certainly talking to parents or uncles or aunts, one of the things that is obviously advantageous is to learn any family history that may be contributing to your issues, whether it's an autoimmune disease that may be affecting, or if there's history of other factors. Certainly those are things you should learn about as best as possible, as you should for anything else in your health life. But it becomes so hard because you go into a situation. I mean, I have family that have gone through miscarriages. My wife had family that have went through miscarriages, but you still see them with kids, and either they haven't opened up about their story, or that you look at them and all you can see are the 2 to 3 kids that everybody has, and it sometimes can make it harder. You look at whatever your religion is, whether you're like myself, Jewish, and you're going through Passover, and Hanukkah, which is so many kid-centric activities, or you're going through Christmas and you're so used to the family getting together for meals, or for Thanksgiving, for Easter, etc., which again have so many kid-based elements to it, that it becomes hard. And when you try to excuse yourself and say, I can't do this because here's the issue,
Mhm.
a lot of times there will be a lot of misunderstanding, if not from the parents, who hopefully will understand a little bit more. It'll be from the uncle or aunt who won't necessarily understand that, okay, here's why this is an uncomfortable situation. There will always be someone in the family that's going to not get it, and opening up to family becomes harder. And while you're going to do your best to educate the people that are closest to you so that they can become advocates for you in a way, it's just like trying to open up to your partner. It's trying to open up to anybody. And I think the one thing that none of us really ever want to do, despite some of the things that we may do throughout our adolescence or later on in life, is we never want to disappoint our parents. We never want to give them that feeling, especially when they're going through things also. Like their friends circles are all of a sudden grandparents and taking the grandkids out. They're feeling something also.
Right.
And it's probably something that they don't express enough either, is because they're in an awkward spot where they don't want to be putting shame on you, but they don't know how to be acting about it. And it can create separation as well, where all of a sudden the father and son can't talk about grandkids. They can't, talk about the things, putting up a basketball hoop together, things like that. So all of a sudden there's a dynamic that changes as well as the progression happens, and they see things happening for their friend groups the same way that we're seeing things for our friend groups. So there is really, in the ideal situation, you would get the family together to speak openly, or to go through counseling, even beyond the couple, but to involve the would-be grandparents in those conversations as well, because there's a feeling of loss there. There's a feeling of, I should be an uncle right now. There's a feeling of I should be an aunt right now. How do I deal with my feelings when mine are not as nuclear as it is for my children? The same way that a husband feels, like, how do I talk to my wife when she's feeling that much more of an emptiness than I am?
And that's what that level of education around, kind of like, okay, what I can deal with right now. If there's some close people to be able to say, okay, right now, if there's a pregnancy announcement, maybe instead of calling me, maybe leave it on the machine. I'll listen to it later.
Yeah.
Or if there's going to be a baby shower, maybe I don't need an invite, or maybe if I'm going to be invited, fine, because then it becomes you get excluded.
Yeah.
So a lot of times what people really crave during this time is connection. And what happens is the opposite, is we withdraw and isolation, where we really want people around us, but it's to have those people that we feel secure with and comfortable with, to be able to share what it is we're going through.
And that's absolutely where the support group element becomes so important. And it is so hard to imagine yourself going to a support network, no matter what it's for, whether it's for elements of mood disorder / mental health, whether it's for dealing with alcohol issues or others. You just feel such a bruised ego when you go through that. And I went through that too. I felt so weird, so awkward with it, that I didn't know how to properly express myself. But at a certain point, you just have to do it. And I said it before, there's no other way to say it. You just have to do it. You will know when the time is right, but you also have to push yourself. You have to be able to know that if you're going to get through this, you have to be able to go out and find your avenue, whatever it is. And obviously in a healthy manner, something that's not going to be destructive, something that's not going to impede your progress towards having a child, but you just have to find your way. And whether it's a group of guys who are all going through it together, to go out and have a couple drinks and to shoot pool or something like that, or to go into a rec hockey league or something, and just to talk as guys do, sometimes a little bit easier when your body's exhausted. It's just a matter of finding that avenue and finding that right way to get yourself going, and to be able to face the issues that you are facing, and to be able to open up about them.
Yeah, and as a guy, as far as tips to cope, so obviously you're recommending the support groups, but what's your take on, I don't know if you use any of these strategies such as mindfulness or yoga, or I don't know, did any of that stuff, you use any of those things?
Yeah, I did yoga. I found it very relaxing, and sometimes it would be as simple as just a couple quick poses before bed, or to go through something more intense. But generally speaking, and every mental health practitioner will tell you that the number one way to get yourself feeling better is by being active. And certainly I did that. I did it in a way and I alluded to it before, one of the things that I love to do was biking. So I wouldn't go biking for extended periods, but I would do it for short blasts. I would avoid going in the sauna, but I would go and work out a little bit longer, or I would do things to get myself. It distracts you from your own thoughts, which can often be your worst enemy, but it also gets you thinking a little bit clearer, just to unleash your energy and unleash your pent up feelings a little bit more. And and I did a lot of those physical activities. I also did a lot of the mental activities, and I think the mental is just as important. So for me, I would, sink myself into a video game for an hour or so, and while I was playing, I would just let my mind relax and let my mind soothe and let my mind talk to myself in a healthy manner, rather than just sitting twiddling my thumbs or doing useless things that weren't doing anything. The worst thing that you can do is isolate yourself in a room with nothing, or that's no activity better than to be sitting and staring at a screen. That's not necessarily the case. I think a lot of people undervalue the value of what having a release like a video game, or reading books, or what have you can do. It's a matter of what is going to work best for each individual male, and it should be a combination, to me, of both the physical and the mental, because the physical will physically drain you, but once you've had that run, or once you've done those hours of weights, what's the first thing you do? You go into the shower, and all of a sudden you're alone with your thoughts. So to me, there has to be a little bit of both, a little bit of physical, a little bit of mental, both distraction and being able to just find that way to relax and release a little bit.
Yeah, having that outlet both physically and mentally. And so for you, how the yoga can be really good for people if they're having a hard time with meditation, that kind of anchors the breath. And then for you, some exercise, and even joining, you mentioned hockey. I don't know if you did that, but or you mentioned like a rec league or something like that. So people
Yeah.
join, some sports with other guys and stuff.
And a lot of that is that you want to maintain, and it's the same thing that mental health practitioners would say, is that you want to have a little bit of normalcy no matter what you're going through. So for me, I was playing floor hockey from the time that I was 10 years old. So I was playing in a rec league every Monday night, and it was a great release for me. It got me active, but it also got me into a state where I was able to think a little bit more as I was driving home or biking home with my stick over my shoulder or something like that, where you have to do something that's going to be normal for you. You have to, so many other aspects of your life are going to feel abnormal. The more that you can do to have a little bit more of that normalcy is going to work wonders for you.
Yeah, and typically in times of stress, we will give up the exercise and give up some of the things that we may enjoy, where that's the exact time that we need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And as far as some resources that you can think of, either, I know you're going to recommend Fertility Matters website,
Yeah.
but is there any book or any apps or anything that's come to mind for you?
The funny thing is that there aren't a lot of apps, or there aren't a lot of books for guys. And that's what I ambition to do, is I ambition to have a book out about that targets guys and couples
Mm-hmm.
for dealing with fertility. But ultimately, support groups, whether you're going through a physical support group that are offered through Fertility Matters, or you're going on an online forum like the Facebook groups, or you're going on IVF.ca, or some of the apps that are out there. There are some that are being developed currently. There's also one of the mental health apps that I've used is 7 Cups, is a great app. It's a peer-led forum app that is really effective, that I found. But ultimately, there's no one solution that's going to work for every guy. You have to look at your own makeup. What is the way that you best communicate? What are the ways where you release? What are the ways that you can feel the most comfortable, where is going to be the best spot for you. And some guys will be as stereotypical as they come, that they'll say that, I feel most at ease at watching, sitting in the stands at a baseball game. Yeah. Other guys will say, that, I'll go to a poetry night and I'll sit with a tea and be able to just unwind there. Whatever it is, you just have to know for yourself what is going to be your best release, and being able to find that relaxation, and then to use that to your advantage to be able to open up. And whether it's something where you're going out in your own skin, or if you are going on a username on a forum, whatever the solution is for you, the bottom line is to find that, to activate it, and to take from there and bring that back to your partnership, to your lifestyle, to your family, to your friends, or to whatever outlets are going to be part of your journey, so that you have the understanding going forward, so that you have that ability to be able to move forward in a positive manner and to move towards your solution.
Yeah, really focusing on me time and self-care and putting yourself first, and recognizing what you're going through is it's a moment in time, which it may feel like a long moment in time, but there will be an end.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Another really great book is Conquering Infertility by Alice Domar. So she's the pioneer of mind-body fertility. And she talks a lot actually in her book about tips for men to help deal with infertility, and kind of women are experiencing, and how to help their partner if they're not able to open up. So that's another really great resource too.
Absolutely. One of the things that I've noticed in a lot more is that it is becoming a far more common thing. And I think that it's, even when I look back to when we started with our infertility issues back in around 2010, was that it was so closed down. Whereas now you're looking at even things in media, like with the recent topic on Roseanne, on so many other television shows, and seeing more discussion, talk about the advances, etc. I think that it's becoming a much more open environment for you to be able to see that, no, you're not alone, that yes, there is a dramatization that happens when you're seeing it in a movie or you're seeing it on a television show, but that these are examples that come from real life, and that you're not feeling that alone. So seeking some of those out, and being able to watch The Couple on Life in Pieces or things like that, and to be able to watch that with your partner, and to look at some of the documentaries that are out on Netflix, are certainly, there's a little bit more a communal aspect of that that goes along with reading, etc. And you'll all of a sudden start to feel better there as well.
Yeah, another great. I interviewed the woman that was in the movie One More Shot, and it's a documentary of her 5-year journey through infertility,
right.
and it's on Netflix, and that'll be out at the end of June, so depending on when this is going live. But that movie is like, get your Kleenex and prepare yourself. And if someone doesn't understand what it's like to go through infertility, share with them that movie, because it's so powerful. And yeah, just the roller coaster of emotions of what it's like to go through this journey. And as far as a success story, obviously your success story with your daughter, is there anything else you'd like to share with a success story? Or
I hesitate to say success story, because the reality is that infertility doesn't go away when you have your child. You might end up looking at having a second child or a third child later on, or there will always be a feeling of differential. The biggest success story for me, along with having my daughter, obviously, was that we had couples that went through the journey with us that had kids around the same time as us. So that was a group success, where we now have Halloween parties every year, and we see our kids all growing up. They don't necessarily play with each other year round, but we see that progression every year, and we see more kids joining in every year. But for me, there's nothing that'll ever compare to that moment of holding my daughter for the first time and seeing her now screaming "Daddy" when I come home, or things like that, or even seeing friends that you had the conversations with, and now they're having kids also, or that you're now able to share in these experiences and share on the other side. Those are the successes. But ultimately, the success only goes so far. And one of the biggest successes is to recognize that infertility doesn't go away, that you're always that's recognizing that there's going to be certain spots where you're going to have to face, how do I talk to my kid about their journey and how their journey was different? Or are they going to have concerns later because we faced the issues before? So the success comes in telling your story. The success comes in sharing your experiences, and the success comes when you have this community that you have now built and are no longer alone. You're no longer isolated. You are now part of this greater group. The old expression is that it takes a village to raise a child. Well, it takes a village of infertile couples to raise awareness and to raise this community.
I love that. Yeah. It's, 1 in 6 in Canada, 1 in 8 in the US. I had both my kids with donor eggs, and that's why I have, and people are kind of like, oh, are you going to share with your children? They came from donor eggs. And yes, I shared with them at a very young age, and I was very open about it, written a book about it. So it's to know that you are not alone. And that really is a powerful message, because when you're going through this, it can feel like you're the only person in the world.
Absolutely.
Going through it. Yeah. So Fertility Matters. So you're on the board there, and it's at fertilitymatters.ca. Just share with us what we can expect and what we can get as far as resources on that site.
Absolutely. So through the website, you will learn about the different in-person support groups that are available across Canada that generally meet once a month at a location. You'll also learn about the various Facebook and other social media aspects that we have available. You'll get to see a number of resources. I'll learn about members that are fertility clinics or fertility assists areas such as acupuncture, or you'll also get to see stories from other couples. We have our success stories and our overall other stories. Not every couple is successful, and every story that comes from different angles are shared through our 1 in 6 stories. And you're going to spend an hour on there, and you're going to see blogging tips. You're going to see stories of heartwarming and heartache. You're going to see everything, and you have an incredible network that is available to you, and really available to you 24/7 through social means, through other means as well, of support and education and learning and helping you feel that you are not alone.
Yeah, definitely. So fertilitymatters.ca, definitely check out. They have as I say, the online support groups, the in-person support groups in Canada, and also the Fertility Week, actually, where they teamed up with Resolve in the US. I think is it the third week in April that it is?
Yeah, we did it. We did National Canadian Infertility Awareness Week, the third week of April this past year.
Yeah.
And we're going to be around the same time next year.
Excellent. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story and sharing your message of really hope, and sharing again that you are not alone, and giving some insider tips for men to definitely look at this journey. So I thank you so much for coming on.
My pleasure.
Hey there, Sarah Clark here. So are you struggling to have your baby? First of all, please know that my heart goes out to you. I support couples worldwide who are struggling with infertility to conceive and have healthy babies. Women like Rita, who gave birth to her beautiful daughter after following my fertility coaching system. Or Danielle, who after 2 failed IUIs was able to get pregnant after a supercharger fertility discovery call with me. So here's how you get my help for free. So I offer a free supercharger fertility discovery call. And on that call, I'll create a plan with you that is going to help you fast track your success. So this call is not for everyone. And I'm really picky about who I get to speak with. And I have a strict but totally reasonable criteria that needs to be met in order for us to move forward. So here's who I can help. So first of all, you need to be able to explore your infertility diagnosis in a new light. So this offers for people who are open-minded, they're coachable, and if you can do that and want to double or triple your chances at the fertility clinic or get pregnant, awesome. So let's get on the phone and chat. Also, you must be an action taker. So someone who's committed to seeing results, you're able to follow directions. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to do anything bizarre. But if you're one of those people who like to consume a ton of information, but don't like to spend time implementing and seeing results, then the call's not really for you. So I only want to spend time with people who are genuinely committed to their own success. So just click on the link in the show notes and apply, or go to fabfertile.com and click on the free consult. So it's a really short application that just tells me about your health, how long you've been trying to conceive, and how soon you'd like to be pregnant. So seriously, this is going to be the best time you've ever spent on your fertility. Looking forward to chatting. Talk soon. Thank you for listening to Get Pregnant Naturally. Seriously, it means the world to me that you're here. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you can be notified of upcoming episodes. I'm excited to offer you a special gift. If you're a U.S. resident, text FERTILE to 345-345. You'll be prompted to enter your email address and you'll receive our fertility yoga download. In this 20-minute intro video, we focus on a calming and peaceful practice to connect back to your heart. These simple fertility yoga poses can help quiet negative thoughts and make you feel more in control. Download it now and get started today. So for U.S. residents, text FERTILE, FERTILE, to 345-345. For non-U.S. residents, go to www.yogafreebie.com to access your special gift. That's www.yogafreebie.com to access the free fertility yoga download. And I love this quote by Dr. Mark Hyman, Medical Director of the Cleveland Clinic Center for Functional Medicine and Chairman of the Institute for Functional Medicine. Functional medicine is medicine by cause, not by symptom. Functional medicine practitioners don't in fact treat disease. We treat your body's ecosystem. We get rid of the bad stuff, put in the good stuff, and because your body is an intelligent system, it does the rest. Thanks for listening. Until next time.